Ladies and gentlemen, everybody is now, this is now being streamed through YouTube.
When it's green, you're off.
Okay. Morning, Chair Kip.
Good morning.
Chairman Kip, can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent. Good morning, sir.
Trying to get my computer running. Oh,
I
boy.
understand that.
Jody, I'm not seeing you on my screen anywhere. Oh, there you are. Okay. There you are. I talked to Kathy last night and she will be on this morning.
Oh, great. It looks like everything's working here.
Good morning, this is Region 5, just doing a sound test. Can you hear me?
We
Can.
hear-
We can hear you.
Thanks, Pat.
Mhm. Uh-oh.
That doesn't sound good.
Hello?
Oh, no, it's just me. I can see all of you guys, I can hear you and everything, but I don't see me on here.
Mm,
What do I do?
Okay. Pat, Kathy just is calling me and she says she can see us, but she can't see her on the screen anywhere.
She has to be let in as a panelist. Is Pat there?
I'm here.
Did you hear Chair Kip?
Yeah, I'm just,
Okay.
that was Karen McLean, right?
Kathy McLean,
Or Kathy McLean, sorry, yes.
yes.
She was just made into a panelist.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm up now.
Us. Morning, Kathy.
Morning. Pat, is Region 2 still in the queue to be a panelist?
So Region 2 was a panelist. Let me make sure that I can see. So 1, 3, 4, 5, 7.
They're in the other list as waiting, it looks like.
They are being changed right now.
Thank you. Pat, it seems like Brian and Nate are still waiting on a link.
Or
To join here. I think Quentin sent you an email this morning about it.
Nate and Brian should have received them. I did that this morning. I can't.
Okay. I will let them know.
I can't send it out anymore now that I've started the meeting.
I sent one to Brian this morning as well, him and Quentin.
Brian's on, it looks like, so maybe Nate just missed it.
Who is 406 and the last three numbers are 563? Please.
Pat, I wonder if that's me, Quentin.
Oh,
Quentin?
okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Quentin.
you. Yeah, thank you. Deb?
Yes.
Yeah, so if it does get down to season details, like I say, Brian are happy to help, and I'll keep my eyes open and ears open for that. But just as with
Yep.
the commission, if there are details, Brian and Nate would be best.
Thank you so much.
And Jeff there too, Jeff Hendoin. Thank you.
Okay, Nate said he doesn't have a link, so I'm assuming he can't get one right now. So, Brian, you're gonna either have to cover, or unless Pat has another thought.
He can go out to the website and he can with the info. Once the meeting starts and we do the Pledge of Allegiance, then I will go up and talk to Nate.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just checking. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So you are here, Nate. I was just about to respond. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I have 9 a.m., so it's up to you and you want to move from here.
Okay, is Liz, has she joined us? What member?
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. I'm just not going to turn on my camera in hopes that I have better connection this month.
Okay, I appreciate it. I see you down there. All right, it looks like we have a full board and 9 o'clock, so we'll start this meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and free for justice for all. Okay. The next thing would be the approval of our minutes. And in our packet, we have May minutes and we have June minutes. Have all the members been able to read them? Do we have any questions or anything we need to discuss there? I'm not hearing anything from the board members.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I did not have any changes or additions to those meetings, or excuse me, to those meeting minutes, and I would move that the board approve the May and June meeting minutes as presented in our packet.
Okay, can I get a second there?
I'll second that.
Okay,
This
thank you,
is-
Kathy.
Thank
So
you.
all in favor of approving those minutes for both May and June that are included in our packet, say aye.
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 Okay. Next on our agenda is board member reports. And let's just go by districts again this meeting. We'll start with District 1. Jody, you're up.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see, update say from Region 1. There's a couple of things going on in Flathead Lake. The Yellow Bay is last legislative session received quite a bit of funding for improvement on that state park. We're looking at moving and paving the entrance, main roads, moving and updating campsites, and hopefully everything will get lined out. What I hear from Dave Landstrom, who's the regional recreation manager for Region 1, that hopefully construction will begin next spring. Also on Flathead, most of you remember Summers Beach. Of course, there's a lot of improvements continually going on there. What they're looking at right now is the parks is working with the BNSF for an agreement to construct a trail across the property that would connect the east part of the park to the west. So that would be nice. I know, let's see, most of us have been there. And if you remember, when we walked down to the beach that time we visited, we used that one main trail that goes down right in the middle. And that is the main access point right now. So it gets used quite a bit, but the beachfront is pretty substantial. So I think this will be a really great addition if they can get that trail across that connects from the east to the west. And I think people are going to be dispersed a bit more and use more of the beach. When I've been there and visited and just kind of watch people, I can see everybody just kind of goes down that same trail and the same way to that, and that gets kind of crowded there. I think it'll work nice to spread that out and get people to use, you know, the whole beach. It's very pretty all the way down there. So hopefully we look forward to seeing that soon. Let's see, Region 2. We've got some new staff in Region 2. I recently met with the new regional manager, Kendra McCluskey, and we had a great visit. And it's great to just kind of connect and shake hands. Like she said, put a face to the name, and also had a discussion with the new recreation manager, Ben Dickinson, and so hopefully here maybe in the next month we might get a chance to sit down and have a little face to face, just so you know, it's nice to get to know the folks and kind of get that, build those relationships. Also was visiting Beavertail Hill Campground, and my timing was just perfect when I came through. The park ranger was there and had a great discussion with him and he and the camp host, and it's nice to just kind of talk to the folks that are really the boots on the ground and kind of learn some of the issues and things that they deal with every day. So kind of just some good information there. So anyway, that is the highlights there, Chairman Kipp. So I will pass the microphone back to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Jody. I'm next up on the list. I did not attend Bannock Days this summer. I've had a pretty busy summer doing other things. I was in Bannock last week. They had our District 3 had a CAC meeting, and it was at Bannock. And most of the people on the CAC for District 3 had not been to Bannock before, so it was great to have that. And John Phillips has been at the park for 17 years, and now he's in charge of that there. So I'm not sure, is he the manager or the park ranger, but he's the head person there. But he has a history degree, and he did a great presentation walkthrough telling us all about the history of just when Bannock first started, when it was in the territory. You know, it was Idaho and Montana, and how they came up with the names and everything. Just an excellent presentation. The CAC meeting was great. A lot of time was spent on the fisheries for this district down here, the Beaverhead, the Big Hole, the Ruby, the Madison. They've been doing quite a bit of studying on the fish this year. Things are looking pretty good outside of the drought, which we won't know how we're going to come out, you know, with the low water. But as far as parks, I did not get to anything else except for Bannock. So that's the end of my report. Liz, District 3, you're up next.
Good morning, everybody. So a couple things going on in my district. The First Peoples Buffalo Jump State Park hosted their Junior Ranger program this year. Sounds like it was a good success. Lots going on the water, as I'm sure you're all aware that heat has probably encouraged more people to be on the water. And unfortunately, we've had more tragedies with people not wearing life jackets and accidental drownings. And also with all the hoot owl restrictions due to the high temperatures and somewhat lower flows. I also actually was able to go up to Sloosbach State Parks twice in the last month, and absolutely beautiful. In fact, I took a friend from out of state and she said, I don't think anybody in the US knows how beautiful it is here and what a great job the parks people do in maintaining this site. So kudos to all of our staff for all that they do for our state. And that's what I have.
Okay, thank you, Liz. District 4, Kathy.
Yes, well, we've been fairly active over the side of the world. Chief Plenty State Park has an upcoming celebration day. Medicine Rock State Park's dark sky designation is still attracting. Tongue River Reservoir, the fishing's good, but we've had a fire close to it. Makoshika State Park had their buzzard days, which went well again. Visitation was high during COVID, and it hasn't really slowed down over here, thanks in good part to good parks management and a lot of other factors. The addition of additional campgrounds really helps. The new yurt and the sheep wagon, they're cool and have been well received. They're looking into possibility of cleaning up the lead from an old shooting range that's right before you enter the park, and possibly using that area as additional campsites. That shooting area really isn't needed anymore or used anymore because they've got an indoor range right there or close to there. Anyway, so that will be good. Southeast Montana Tourism has ads that are phenomenal running right now that embrace the wild side of Makoshika and kind of add to a mystique. They're doing a good job. Trails to Trails. Now that was the effort to connect North Dakota's Medora's Matahay Trail, which is non-motorized, to Makoshika. The committee wrote and was awarded a National Parks Recreation Trail Conservation Assistance Grant, and I can't say that 3 times, which brought a consultant to the team, Leila Mellon. They were working on trails through private landowner access with gates that open and close automatically and so on behind the traveler. Now, with this consultant's help, they're looking at utilizing public dirt roads and behind the scenes existing roads too. And now Prairie County's Calypso Trail is interested in being added to this trail once it's named and if this all comes to fruition. And the trail would go from there to Glendive. And then behind the scenes, Makoshika, behind the scenes, Belle Prairie route to Webo and so on. And we can make this work a lot smoother using some public roads too. That's the effort now. And I thought that was interesting. And basically that's it. And I thank you very much. One thing I'd like to note, I did not receive the physical packets. I've read everything online and thank you for presenting those. But as of today, I still have not received in the mail the physical packets.
Okay, thank you, Board Member McLean. I'll make sure that Eric knows that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Last is District 5. John, you're up.
Yep. Good morning, board members and Deb and the rest. We did some camping this summer at Valley Garden Campground south of Ennis on the Madison River. It's a beautiful, beautiful primitive campground. Very well kept, nice. It's kind of a unkept secret there. There's very little very little traffic in there, and it's just a nice place. You can camp right on the river. Beautiful campground. And then the Plenty-Coup State Park had received a grant, and they've completed the restoration that the grant money paid for, and very beautiful, well done restoration there. And then Pictograph Cave State Park has just received a grant, and they're in the process of with engineering for a plan to restore and preserve the park. Let's see, also, oh yes, and then I attended the CAC meeting, which was at Pictograph Cave State Park, which that was a just incredible meeting. It was so good. I learned a lot of things. It was very good meeting. There was an update on the Stillwater River. They talked a lot about what people had done to try to restore the rivers, Rock Creek and the Stillwater River, and by what they had driven equipment into the river to remove the deadfall, and then they thought, well, we'll make a trough in the river, and that will keep the water in there. Well, what that did was compact the bottom of the river so that the trout can't spawn. They can't make a nest, if you will, to lay their eggs. So they have a little bit of a problem there with that. And Richard Took, the regional manager for parks there, he gave us a tour of the Pictograph Caves, which was really awesome. A lot of, clarified a lot of history that the pictographs told about, which was really neat. And another presentation by the office manager of Region 5. He went through the licensing website for purchasing licenses, and then now with the new digital license you can have on your phone. He explained a lot of that, which was really informative. And then the manager of block management, well, he's actually access manager, gave an excellent presentation. And I mean, there was just so much. It was very good. I learned there are quite a few more access programs included with the block management. So that should do it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, John. I'm going to jump back to Bannock for a second. They were doing quite a bit of work in Bannock. They're working on boardwalks and down around the church and the east end of town. They're also starting to mill some material to match the siding on 3 of the buildings. They're going to re-side, and a couple of them they'll get re-roofed, and they'll do that with all material that matches the time of Bannock. And a lot of work going on there, and I'm sure that's through some of the money that we've approved for spending there. But that was happening. And we too had oh boy. I should write this stuff down. The block management and access people were there and they were talking about all of that. So in that CAC meeting, which was great, if you get a chance to really listen to some of that, there's quite a few programs there. But it was a great meeting with the CAC at Bannock. And so that's all we've got for board member reports. The director report, is that going to be Ryan?
Chairman Kip, Melissa Watson here, Chief of Staff for the agency. As Dustin couldn't be with us, I am prepared to provide the director report.
Would you do that, please? Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Chairman Kip, board members. So again, Melissa Watson, Chief of Staff for the agency here. Just really gonna start with echoing what Chairman Kip had to say. Bannock Days went off wonderfully. We had just a great showing from the public, and our staff did just a wonderful job preparing the park and just navigating the public. And for any of you that were there, Director Temple was also working the gate. So just a really wonderful event that we're very proud to be able to put on for the public, that they can come and just experience that park in Bannock Days. As board member Whitting had referenced, we've had what feels like an increase, or at least a larger amount of water-based incidences and fatalities from various recreation activities on the water, whether it's been swimming, fishing, or boating. And so in response to that, as an agency, we have increased our public awareness and education on how to recreate safely out on our waters, to just reinforce that water can be unpredictable and the best thing you can be is prepared. We had on Monday our habitat conservation leases go to the land board, and they were unanimously approved, and we're very proud as an agency for the work that Ken McDonald and his team put into that. And so we were very pleased to just see a successful land board meeting for our habitat conservation leases. And then final thing for the director's report, our block management access program. We had a goal to be able to have individuals who want to utilize some of our block management to go and reserve spots online. And so we have a prototype with our technology services division. They have developed a prototype for online reservation of our BMAs, and that should be live for our general season. So that is all we had for you today in a director's report, and I'll give it back over to you, Chairman Kip.
Okay, Melissa, I got a question. The other day I saw on TV, they were doing a report with the news station and Morgan in Bozeman, and they showed a loaner life jacket display that was at I think it was at Harrison Lake. Is that something the Fish and Game has and are doing in different places?
There are in different places. I don't know where and how widespread, and I do know that some of the community members also contribute to leaving loaner life jackets in those areas.
It didn't show enough of it to see a Fish and Game emblem on them, but it was their report, so I thought they had probably put that there.
Yep, you can find them at several different locations that we have, and I can't say that the life jackets have a Fish and Game emblem on them, but that system is out there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, of course. Yep.
The action item, our first one is 2026-2027 FWP budget priorities. And in our booklet, the cover sheet that I have in here, I believe is the commission's cover sheet, and it's dated August 16th, not 20th, and it talks about the motion to the commission. Could we get some clarification on that? Did we get the wrong one?
Sure, Chair, I guess we just missed that and carried it over to the board. It's going to say have the exact same language in it. And Eric said that he would put this on the correct cover sheet for the file.
Okay, so then the motion would just be, the Parks Board would approve instead of.
Correct,
the commission.
correct, sir.
Okay. Our presenter is Lene Havren. Lene, are you ready?
Morning, Chair Kip. It's actually Lena,
I'm
but that's
sorry.
fine. I've been called worse. I am the Chief Financial Officer for Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And every biennium, we put together budget priorities that correspond with the governor's initiatives. So we have developed 5 objective areas. And then under those objectives, we have put goals that will drive our legislative requests for our budget. So we're focusing on customer service, partnerships, stewardship, recreation, and our workforce. Along with that, since you guys have that information, I'm not going to read it to you. Along with that, we have given you some of the work we do in the Budget Bureau here is looking at our fund balances. So you will see a handout that has our general license fund balance, as well as the parks, what we call the Parks Big Four. We have it rolled up into one Big Four document and then broken out into which funds make up the majority of parks funding. As you can see, the fund balance on all of our funds in the Parks and Outdoor Recreation is on the rise, which is not a bad thing. And so we will look at that and align some of our legislative requests with our recreation objectives and ask to spend some of this funding in the upcoming biennium. And that is the presentation I have for you and available for questions.
Okay, board members, do we have any questions for Lene? Lena.
Mr. Chairman?
Lena, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Board members, questions?
Yeah, Chairman Kip?
Yes. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, sir. One, looking at how this kind of lays out the direction and priorities for the department. And I was looking back at the past budget priorities that we looked at for the fiscal year 24 and 25, and kind of comparing between the two documents. And being here on the Parks and Outdoor Recreation side of things, of course, I would like to see a little bit more focus on recreation. And more specific, I would say, is that was referred to in the last budget priorities for the previous biennial, was a focus on expanding camping opportunities statewide. And I know that the legislature has looked at that and has recognized the importance of camping opportunities, and especially here in, well, Region 1, the Flathead, Sealy Swan, we all on the board know how important our camping is and how busy our popular campsites are. So so I didn't see a reference to that in the new budget priorities as far as like a reference to camping. And I wonder, is that a position shift? And this may be in really anybody, Deb, if you'd like to weigh in. I'm just kind of curious if there's kind of a way that is the department kind of putting other things in front of that for now.
So again, these are just priorities where we're going to predominantly focus these priorities can change a little bit as we move forward through the process. However, I will say that we are focusing on maintaining what we have before we start to expand new. So with, you know, the reorganization of like the maintenance and some of those other areas, we want to make sure that we are maintaining what we currently have before we start expansion. And Deb, you can add to that if you would like.
Thank you, Lena. That's what you said was exactly what I was going to say, and I was just going to build upon what we've done since the last set of priorities. Board Member Loomis, you're right. We did say we would focus on expanding camping opportunities, and we have. Just to name a few, in the new acquisition of Summers, we're looking at diversified lodgings there. At Tongue River, we put in different opportunities for camping. We have cabins there, and expanding camping at Makoshika and putting in a yurt there. And those are just a handful of the places that we've looked at diversifying camping or lodging opportunities at our parks. So I think we might have some money left over, and we're still moving forward on those projects. But yeah, I wouldn't call it a shift. I would say, you know, we met those objectives pretty well for last biennium, and now we're looking to perhaps do a reset. And obviously, we want to maintain what we have, like Lena said, and then also assess going forward what else we do need.
Oh, thank you for that. I would certainly encourage the department to, if there are opportunities to expand and improve camping, to do so. I know it doesn't always be needed into an appropriations. It doesn't always take money to recognize that. I think that's great. So that's good to hear that you're thinking about that. So thanks, Deb.
Okay, questions from any other board members? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion from a board member.
Mr. Chairman, this is Liz, and I would move the State Parks and Rec Board approve the FWP budget priorities for the 2025 legislative session.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Do I have a second there?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, Kathy McLean, second that. All in favor? Oh, excuse me. Public comments. Do we have anybody in the queue to comment on this?
Chairman Kip, I have Bob.
Okay, Bob, state your name, your full name, where you're from, and if you represent anybody.
Chair Kip and members of the board, my name is Bob Walker. I'm representing the Montana Trails Coalition and the Montana Trails Recreation and Parks Association. I hope this is the appropriate time to bring this point up because it's fairly specific and deals with the Trail Stewardship Program. It's a grant program that FWP administers. We submitted a letter to Administrator O'Neill and Director Temple back on June 1st about funding available from the light motor vehicle registration fee and a portion, 4%, a portion of the recreational marijuana money that is dedicated to a trails grant program, in this case, the Trail Stewardship Program. This current fiscal year, the department made $2 million available for that program, and that was fantastic. And the FWP staff and leadership has done a good job with that program. We received a report by the Legislative Bureau that was published in March that indicated at fiscal year 2023 fiscal year end that there was $1,852,000 that was in the pot from the recreational marijuana for this Trails Grant Program. And then we had a report from prior administrator, Parks Administrator, Hope Stockwell, that annually there's 940 to 948,000 from the light motor vehicle for this program, which totals right at 2.8 million. And we've asked the department to include in their appropriations proposal to the governor's office, hopefully subsequently to the legislature, no less than $2.8 million for the next each year for the next biennium for that program. I just wanted to bring it up today. And again, I credit the department for a good job they're doing with that program, but this is to repeat that request that amount be included each year of the biennium for the Trail Stewardship Program. That's all, Chairman Kip.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Does someone from the office want to give us some information about this request? Does it,
how it might fit in.
Yeah, how it's going to play into, going to our legislative session?
Yeah, so the program that he is speaking of is actually in our House Bill 5 budget, not our House Bill 2 budget. And so we look at a couple different circumstances. We look at fund balance, we look at what's available to appropriate, and we look at all program variables, and then we will determine an amount to request for that funding. There is a placeholder in there for that grant program, as well as all of our grant programs, but the amount is something that we cannot determine at this time what we will be requesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I will offer that, though there might be those funds out there, it takes capacity to manage this program. And while, as Lena says, we don't know what we're going to ask for, we have to assess all those variables, including our capacity. And looking back at the past grant cycle, we did not have an ask exceeding our authority very much. So we weren't being asked for, say, $500,000 more in grants, and we didn't have the ability to give that out. The ask from us pretty much closely matches what we had. So that's another variable going forward, what we're going to be looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Jody.
If I could, while I wanted to throw in my 2 cents worth while we're on this topic before we moved on. I also got a request from the Montana Trails Coalition as a board member, and to support that funding appropriations bill that they're working on now, that the full amount, they were requesting that full amount be requested in there. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that grant program, the Trail Stewardship Program. That there are several trail programs out there that FWP manages. This one, I know that Mr. Walker has worked intimately on. He's the one that talked to it today and helped bring that bill, and that has brought more funding to trail programs. It's set up, it kind of mirrors the federal RTP grant. So like 30 motorized, 30 non-motorized, 40 diversified percent-wise. So the funding goes to all trails. The folks that can apply for that funding are nonprofits. So you got the local clubs and organizations that are connected with the trails. They're the ones that apply for the funding. FWP just manages it. We've all got the system set up that brings the funding in. I have currently, I've got 3 active grants myself within that system through 3 different organizations. The Montana Snowmobile Association, one grant provides emergency funding for grooming operations. You could have, this is really kind of a revolutionary program, Russ, where an individual club may have an equipment breakdown and they get their funding gets all spent on repairing their equipment and they don't have any funding left at the end of the year to finish out their grooming. Or you get a longer snow season. We might have April 1st. Here we get the spring dumps and they've already spent all their money and cannot continue to groom. And it's always a struggle. So this is an extra pot of money on top of what they're just one breakdown away from grooming ending in some of these areas. So it has some flexibility that can address certain problems as they may come up. That's one program that's going on now that will be new, and we're going to have that will last for 2 years. That funding to help with that snowmobile grooming program. Another one was a reroute of 2 trails here close to Helena that was a motorized and non-motorized project. That program, or excuse me, that particular grant will probably be just wrapped up within the next couple of weeks. And then another one is kind of an innovative sign project that is new to our area that is both summer and winter use. So there's a couple examples of how this grant program is used. And as a fan of recreational trails, when you can go to an agency and have a trail proposal, say we could improve this or we can address this issue, and you also show up with FWP as your partner and you've got funding available, your chances of success is way higher than it normally would be if you just went to, say, the Forest Service and say you need to fix this. You know, they don't have the funding, they don't have the staffing, the organization. So I mean, FWP has been fantastic to work with and has done an outstanding job of managing this program. So I hope it continues and stays strong. Some folks in the legislature may look at that pot of money and say, hey, I don't know, this could be used elsewhere. I'm to say this has been managed very well. It's working on projects in maintenance, project in the past, current projects, and projects that people are looking at in the future. Without this program, we may have some projects on the horizon here, and we're going to need to go to this grant program to help these programs come to light. So the Montana Trails Coalition would also like to ask the other board members if they would support this program and funding for this program as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Jody, thank you. You know, speaking of a groomer breaking down, that happened to the Beaverhead Snow Riders this past winter. They broke an axle on one of their new groomers way back in about 25 miles in. And they had to go in and manually take that groomer apart, bring the axle out on snowmobiles, get the new one, go back in and replace it. Took several days. They were down quite a bit of money. And then that ran them low on grooming money. I believe they made it through just simply because the grooming season was shorter, but it's good to have that safety valve. So yes, I support that. If that's all our comments, then let's.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Chair Kip. So at the CAC meeting, I just found out that there is another board, the Fish Wildlife Board. So I'm curious, do they vote on this, the Fish, Wildlife and Parks budget as well? Because we're parks.
The Chair Kip and board member Rancic, are you speaking to the Fish and Wildlife Commission?
No, he was on the board for Fish and Wildlife. Maybe is that what it is a commission? He said
It's
it was
a commission. Yeah,
that's a commission.
Do you remember his name? Or?
Brother, I know.
Are you talking about Commissioner Siebel?
What's
Brian
that?
Siebel? Brian Siebel?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian
from
Siebel
Billings,
is
from Billings.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
He's on the Fish and Wildlife Commission. So the Fish and Wildlife Commission met last week and they voted to approve this budget or this our priorities moving forward. And then this is the board that oversees Parks and Recreation, and
Yeah.
you guys approve it as well. You
Okay.
ask that you approve it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I was curious about that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Deb.
Okay, if that's all of our discussion, the motion on the table is to move the State Parks and Rec Board approve the FWP budget priorities for 2025 legislative session. That's on the table. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, then that is approved with a vote of 5-0. Next thing, action item is our administrative rulemaking, Smith River existing arm correction and new arm rule. The presenter is Deb O'Neill, our acting division administrator, Parks and Outdoor Recreation. Deb, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair, board members. You've seen, particularly Jeff Hindoin and myself come before you on this piece. This is our third time now. The first was to ask to initiate rulemaking, and then the next was to submit to the Secretary of State, and now we're asking you to approve the arm correction and the 2 new rules. During that time, the Montana Administrative Process, MAPPA, we've seen the public comment 3 times so far. Today, if anybody did sign up, it would be the 4th opportunity for the public to comment on this. The first 2 you've heard at the commission or at the board meetings rather. I'm not going to go over the rules. You've seen this before and you have it in your package. And then during the hearing we held as part of the MAPPA process to develop ARM rules, we had both testimony and written public comments at the hearing on July 19th. You have the comments in front of you, and also in the notice of adoption, what you have is the notice of amendment and adoption with the comments embedded in that document and department response there. A lot of the comments, and these are just summaries, you also have the raw comments, but you'll see in the summary, many of the comments were on the reason behind the development of the rule, not the rule itself, not the rule language itself. So it was sort of out of the scope of what we were seeking. We wanted comments on the rule language. And didn't get a whole lot there, but you do have the raw comments in front of you. And with that, we do seek your approval to adopt the notice as presented. And Jeff Hindoin, our Chief Legal Counsel, is here to answer any questions from that side as well.
Okay, we'll have a discussion and questions from our board members. I guess I'd start looking at the comments all the way through, and then from that Secretary of State's hearing, it looks like the outfitters that this affects pretty much support it. 1, 2, and 3. The 4th part of that, they seem to be pretty much neutral, but there was a lot of comment about the structure of that, to where how they were going to reallocate those launches. They did talk about that there was a need to have that mechanism in there, and but they said that it was going to go to existing outfitters on the Smith. My question is, why just to the existing outfitters on the Smith? You know, this has never happened, but there, it may, and, you know, how does someone new get a permit on the Smith other than buying, somebody out? And if the outfitters become larger, more launches, fewer outfitters with more launches, to be able to purchase one and to get started on that, you know, on the Smith business was more difficult. When you get your outfitting license, you have to go through an inspection and it's tied to your operations plan. And they look at your equipment and your experience. You know, it's all part of getting a license. So I know some of the comments said, well, these guys may not be experienced enough to do that. Well, you know, I think they probably are. They don't have to have a crew of 25 people to do this. So I think that part could be changed to, or looked at to where there'd be a way for someone else that's not an existing Smith River outfitter to get, you know, that launch or 2 launches or whatever it could be if they should ever come up. But to say that it's only going to go to these outfitters, you're setting that in stone that that's where it goes. And then I think you're working that pool of outfitters, you know, smaller in the future. That's my comment on that. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Jody.
Thank you, sir. One question kind of going back is that it was our understanding that there is a court case that's going on, or was, when we talked the last time, that is before the courts, that is between the FWP and an outfitter, and that this case does involve commercial use permitting. And my question is that case still unresolved?
Jeff, I think you can take that for us.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Loomis, yes, the case is still pending and moving forward, just kind of at the slow pace at which civil litigation typically does. The outfitter that's involved in that litigation is still operating under the terms of the court's injunction and will be, you know, during the pendency of the lawsuit. So that's all still moving forward. That being said, there's nothing about this administrative rule, including but not limited to this subsection, that deals with a mechanism for allocating launches that might become available that has anything to do with the lawsuit. It has no relationship to the merits of that lawsuit or any of the challenges underneath it. It's just the arm as proposed and as has been put out for comment is just a mechanism piece, has no linkage to the substance of that lawsuit, though.
Okay. Jody,
Thank you, sir.
anything?
Yeah, I've just in my own thinking is that the board creating rules that address commercial permits on the Smith, while the court has still yet to rule on the commercial permit transfer dispute, kind of may send. I was just concerned about a message it may send from the board for us to be deciding on to creating new rules while this is still being litigated. I didn't know if the rest of the board had those concerns. I was concerned about how the image that it sends or the message it may send from the board was one thing. I'm curious to hear what the board members think about that. And kind of on to Russ, like you talked about, if we want to transition into looking at the rules that are proposed and some of the comments from some of the outfitters on the rules. Definitely, they see issues with the vagueness of the rules. Some of the comments were that they lack detail on what the lottery system is, how this is going to be. And Russ, you touched on that, that some of the terms may need to be defined better. How to reallocate launches is unclear. In the new rule, they call out the inconsistencies between the ARM and MCA language. And one comment was also that, this new ARM filed with the Secretary of State, everything should be pretty tight, that the new ARM should be detailed and clear. And so I think it may need some more work. And so maybe Deb might want to speak to, how polished should this final product look before it goes into an ARM. Anyway, Deb, if you want to jump in there, go for it.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Kip, Board Member Loomis, and then maybe Jeff might have something to add. This needs to be polished, and we feel that it is. We feel that it is clear enough to become an ARM. Whenever we support or write ARMs that manage how we do our work at FWP, it needs to be fairly clear in here. As well, it might give the board or commission, depending on what we're actually talking about, it might give you authority to operate within that rule as well. And you might have some latitude there. But certainly when something goes to the Secretary of State, we want it as tight as possible. And I don't know if Jeff would like to add to that.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Member Loomis. Yeah, one individual commented about vagueness, and that's the individual who sued the department. From a legal perspective, there's no vagueness, uncertainty, lack of clarity in terms of how we would administer or implement this rule. From my perspective, it doesn't need any further work to go to the Secretary of State. It kind of conforms in all respects with the standards we try and use in getting these things developed, and then finally get them into a final form and kicked over to the Secretary of State's office. So, I mean, from our perspective, the legal unit, we didn't have any concerns about vagueness or inconsistency, and no one has yet kind of even pointed out what those might be, other than to just make that statement. So we're 100% comfortable that it's plenty clear enough as it sits, if that's the board's inclination to use that mechanism to be carried over to the Secretary of State.
Okay, thank you, Deb and Jeff. Any other comments or discussion here from our board members?
Mr. Chairman, this is Liz.
Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I think it's important that we remember what our role is as the State Parks and Rec Board. We do not issue permits. That is a department function. So the lawsuit that is in play actually has nothing to do with the ARM that is before us that we're considering, because what we do regulate is how permit holders conduct themselves. And so this ARM is addressing if a commercial use permit holder has been suspended for some reason and then gets their permit revoked, and then what does the department do with those licenses? So currently the department has the authority to do whatever they want with them. They could say, we're not going to reissue them, and sorry, nobody gets them. So this ARM actually tells the department that we want them to reissue those licenses to any existing commercial use permit holder. That being said, I do agree with the chairman that why is it limited to only that small group of people? Why isn't it available to all? So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to make a motion, but maybe other board members want to speak first. But just as a heads up, I would like to split the motion and take all of this stuff that we received no comment on, it didn't have any issues with, and make that one separate motion, and then make another motion regarding, shall we say, the more controversial part, or the part that we received messages on.
Okay, Liz, I think John is ready to comment. Before you do that, please.
Sure.
Well, yeah, Chair Kip. What can somebody address the importance of getting this approved now? Is there a reason that because the Smith River is pretty much done right now?
Sure, Chair Kip, Board Member Marancic, maybe Jeff can speak to the timeline a little bit better, but the year before a legislative year, the timelines are a little bit compressed for the MAPPA process. And this is why we were trying to do it, so we could get it in place for next year. We don't have time after the legislative session starts after the first of the year to get this in place. So this is really the time we have to do it now. And we don't feel like we were rushing this. We were just complying with the timelines of the Secretary of State's office. And if we wanted something in place for next year, this is the only time we could do it.
Do you say that by the first of the year?
So the legislative, before the year of the legislative session, the MAPPA process is generally compressed. We have a shorter amount of time to get things done the year before a legislative session. If we were to wait until next year, the timelines might be longer for us to do it, but we would have nothing in place for next float season on the Smith.
Right. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair and John, so the problem is if we don't correct this now, we have to wait until after the legislature adjourns. And by then, there won't be enough time to go through the formal process of presenting it to the board, and then voting to send it to the Secretary of State, and then voting, and then get public comment, and then it coming back to us to approve. So like how the date is wrong, that June 15th, July 15th date, that's why we got to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other member?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jody.
May. I think that if, of course, we've got the date change that was from the June to July that was incorrect. That's pretty simple and straightforward. As far as the rule, if we didn't pass a new rule, the next float season doesn't begin till next May. We've got time. I think we have we can continue to operate under the biennial rules, which we currently are, and we have. And the biennial rules give us some flexibility. There's a lot more flexibility there than something that's in the ARM. And if something, for some reason, would come up, if by chance there was floats that were not allocated, that the department didn't have a mechanism to do something with, and they needed board approval, this board works very well together. We're very flexible. Our last meeting proved that. We could be, if they needed us to approve something because they got backed into a corner, I'm pretty confident that we could pull it out. We've done it before many times. And then I would rather see us step back and pause and hold off on the new rules. And I would like to see a working group established. We had a working group that was developed that came together and assembled for the Smith River rules last time we did this. And Russ, if you remember, That was a working group that came together that was locals, outfitters, and the whole outfitting public, and also our vice chair Mo attended those meetings and was a participant in that working group, and then she brought those ideas back to the board. I think that these rules should have more input from the outfitters and the outfitting community, because we're only talking about 7 floaters right now. It's real easy. It's to get them together with the department and possibly the outfitters board and come up with rules that make sense to everybody. And honestly, I would like to see our chairman, Mr. Kip, has so much experience with outfitting and floating. I would like to see him partake and participate in the development of these rules, because obviously you can tell by some of his comments and questions, he understands this very well. So I'm certainly not prepared to say this, the rule needs this, it needs that, it needs this. I'm not an outfitter. So I think the best thing that the board could do is just hold off on the rules. So I welcome your comments and suggestions.
Okay, we really have a couple items that we're trying to vote on today. And the one is the date. That needs to be fixed. And then there's the rest of it that there really wasn't any opposition. They were just neutral and they threw out some different suggestions. You know, and one of my suggestions or comment was that why is it going only to existing outfitters? Member Whiting has proposed, when we do need to make a motion and then we'll ask for public comment, that we split those two things and we vote on each one of them. I'm going to ask Deb and Jeff, if we were to do that and say we approved part of it, and I'm going to say the date because that's non-controversial, and then we didn't approve the other part, what would happen at the Secretary of State where we approved part of it only? So Deb or Jeff, can you help us there?
Yes, Chair Kip, I'll defer to Jeff on that one.
Sure, Mr. Chair. You can absolutely do that. And what happens then is we would just amend the proposed notice of adoption that was presented to you in the agenda packet to reflect whatever decision the board may choose to make here in terms of which portions of the rule they want to move forward with adoption or amendment on, and that portion that you don't. I mean, to Ms. Whiting's point, everything in this rule, with the exception of subsection 4 of new rule 1, is the first point you made is a correction. It's a date correction. The balance of the language in new rule 1 and 2, with the exception of subsection 4, is language this board has already adopted as a biennial rule. And with respect to opportunities to comment, I've only worked at the department since February, and we've heard comment on the biennial rule component of this, and this same language, which is simply mirrors that biennial rule, 5 to 6 times at this point. To your point, Chair Kip, there's no controversy about it, and so it's basically taking the commercial permit component of the biennial rule and rolling it over into ARM in the same fashion that the board did last year with the private permit components of the biennial rule. So to not at least pull that over into ARM in the same fashion the board has done with private permit floating, you'd have a disconnect there between parts of the private activity on the river being, structured from a regulatory standpoint differently than the commercial activity. So if the board's inclination is to break this out and and consider the adoption initially of everything in the rule that has not generated any controversy, namely the amendment to 650, and then everything in new rule 1 except subsection 4, and everything in new rule 2. You can certainly do that. And then whatever conversation you may have as a follow-on to that, if the board's inclined to make that decision, whatever conversation you have about the subsection 4 component, which is the allocation method on new rule 1, however you land on that, we can adapt the notice of adoption to reflect that before it goes to the Secretary of State.
Okay, John, you have your hand up.
Well, I think Board Member Loomis, when you mentioned more public comment, I think what he was referring to was coordinating more with the outfitters, because we've already heard obviously the public comment, and it's several times been the same thing. So am I correct on that, Member Loomis?
Yeah, Chairman Kipp and Board Member Marincek, I think so. I think you're correct when I referred to the comment and cooperation. If I understand your question or your comment, I was referring more to, yes, cooperation. I think is important here.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, John?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Member Whiting. After listening to our discussion, we're going to need a motion here.
Yes.
Would you care to make your motion or the original motion, or whatever you would like to do? But we need something to get moving on and get some public comment.
Sure. I move the Parks and Outdoor Rec Board approve the notice of amendment and adoption, except new rule 1, subsection 4, and file it with the Secretary of State. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, what this will do is correct the date. It'll include new rule 1, 2, and 3, new rule 2, but not the subsection 4, which is the only part we've received comments about, except for the one comment about maybe it's too vague. However, having been immersed in ARM for too much of my life, this is very standard ARM language, in my opinion, and that's why I included it in my motion.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I'll need a second for that motion.
I will second that, Mr.
Okay,
Kipp.
Liz motion, Jody second. All right, public comment. So do we have anybody in the queue for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay. So, and we've had our discussion here. Do we need to have, I don't think we need to have any more discussion since the motion was made. I think we've had it all. So I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, Liz, can you repeat your motion one more time, please?
Ooh, I'll try.
Thank you.
I move the Parks and Outdoor Rec Board approve the notice of amendment and adoption to include only the portions that correct the date, the new Rule 2 in its entirety, and then the new Rule 1 in its entirety, except subsection 4. That is the part we will not be voting on in this motion.
Okay, so we've got that, and we've had a second from Jody. All in favor of the motion that's before us? Let's just do a show of hands here. Let's go. Jody, you're in favor. Russ is in favor.
Liz is an aye. Yes.
I can't see your hand, but yeah. And Kathy and John are both. So that moves forward with a 5-0 vote. And at this point, I don't believe we need to do anything more on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
We do.
Yeah, that's Mr. Chairman. And maybe Mr. Hindoing can weigh in, but do we need to do something to dispose of that subsection 4? Do we need to vote it down, or do we, if we don't act on it, does it automatically go away?
Mr. Chair, Member Whiting, if the board doesn't want to take any further action on that component, you wouldn't need to. If there's any desire to either take a vote on it as it sits, or alternatively propose that it be amended to reflect a different lottery structure that would include a broader pool of potential applicants, you can make a motion to that effect, and we could, add that back in if that's the will of the board. But if there's not an inclination to do anything further, you wouldn't need to take any further steps at this point on that.
Okay, discussion with the board members there after Jeff's explanation. Jody, are you up?
Well, I just a little bit of what I mentioned before. I think there's a great opportunity here for the outfitters, the community to come together with the agency and work on a mechanism for reallocation. And I think that would strengthen this, and we'd have a much better situation and a great opportunity to hear. So I look forward to actually hearing back and getting a real solid mechanism in place. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Kathy. I kind of do believe that we should vote on an amendment to include a broader, be more inclusive on this, just because rather than just letting it go away, nothing gets done on it. So I think maybe we should do a separate motion on that, just to amend it to include a broader options. Just my thoughts.
Okay, John, have you got anything there?
Well, doesn't the MCA rule on this? If subsection 4 is gone, then the MCA rules on this question, correct?
Mr. Chair, Member Moranchik, there's no Montana Code annotated provision that would apply in this context.
So so with the other permits on the other rivers, they all have a separate arm?
Chair Kip, Member Moranchik, correct. This is the only closed system and they're not entirely analogous, but is the only closed system that does not have an ARM-based framework for reallocation in the case of forfeiture, revocation, abandonment by non-use. The Smith is the only one that doesn't have that. The Bitterroot is the one that Chair Kipp, I think, is probably thinking of when he's mentioning an analogy for a system that would make any available permits available through lottery to all outfitters as opposed to just the current permit holders.
So, well, yeah, I don't. So how is it possible to look at this further as Board Member Loomis suggested?
Mr. Chair, Member Maranchik, just to back up, this has been looked at by and when we say we've had public comment, literally all of the public comment has come from the 6 to 7 outfitters that are affected by this rule. There's been no comment received from the broader public at all concerning this. And that 7-member pool of permit holders has, as I've indicated, been involved with this since April, and multiple opportunities, including the MAPA process, we're just trying to wrap up at this point. So there's always, I guess, an opportunity for further discussion, but based on what we've seen at the department staff level over the course of the past few months in terms of the multiple opportunities for comments expressed by, and I shouldn't say just the 7 operators, we've received, solid comment as well from FOAM, the Fishing Outfitters Association as well, but I'm not sure what further conversation with those folks would look like relative to the allocation method.
So, but you haven't changed it according to the public comments.
Chair Kipp, yeah, Member Maranchik, there wasn't actually any comment suggesting it be changed, other than, and I qualify that, there was actually a comment, I think to Chair Kipp's point, from one of the outfitters this time, that the consideration could be and maybe should be given to a method, a lottery that's open to more than just the current permit holders. There is actually a comment we received the last cycle, and it was, at the end of the day, that commenter kind of landed in a space where they characterized their position as neutral, but they, made some good points on both sides of that question of whether or not whatever lottery, if that's the board's inclination, whether it be confined to existing permit holders pool or opened up more broadly.
And if I may, Chair Kipp and Board Member Maranchik, in addition to that one comment that Jeff just made regarding he ended up on a neutral stand, a lot of the comments, like I said, weren't on the actual rule language itself. It was on the reasons behind the rule, which weren't ever going to show up in the rule. So those comments couldn't be considered in actually changing the rule language because it didn't make any recommendations to the rule language itself.
Okay. Question, I guess, for Jeff. If we were to make a motion to move this to a broader pool for those launches, should they become available, do we need to identify what that broader pool is, or can we ask the department to develop something and get back to us, and then we can finish this up at the Secretary of State level?
Chair Kipp, I think we really wouldn't have time to pull that off. To the earlier conversation we had about the need in this legislative year, we're cut off with the rulemaking process here in a matter of weeks. And so the notice that you've approved of right now would need to get up there in the next couple weeks. So we wouldn't have time probably to pull you back together. My only only thought on that front would be, though, unless the board's considering a pool that's larger than just the existing Smith permit holders, but smaller than all other, fishing or floating based outfitters, I would think we could just use the same language as we use in the Bitterroot system, or the explanation on that one, which just describes, it just says that permits will be made available to all commercial fishing and floating operators via a random lottery to be conducted by the department. That's what I was thinking, that if you want to open this up to all licensed, basically water-based outfitting operations, that we would just use that language from that and put that in the rule instead.
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, you've already got it there and it's being used. So, any other discussion? If not, we'll ask Liz to finish this up with her second motion.
Ooh, well, let's see if I can restate what Mr. Hendoy just said. So, Mr. Chairman, I would move the Parks and Outdoor Rec Board approve. No, I would move that we amend new Rule 1, subsection 4 to include all water-based outfitters and not just current Smith River outfitters.
If I may interrupt, Chair Kip, I believe that Board Member McLean was the one that brought that up. I don't know if she wanted to weigh in. I apologize for jumping in, but if she wanted to weigh in on that amendment, since she's the one that brought it up.
No, I like the way Liz has put it. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay, so we've got an amendment, got a motion. We'll need a second on it. Someone on the board second that motion, please.
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Okay, Kathy seconds that. Then all in favor, raise your hand.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Oh, I guess we need public comment too. I'm sorry. I want to be done with this. Okay, go ahead, Jody.
I'm sorry. I think that we have maybe some good thoughts here, but I think to adopt this with those changes, we're kind of doing this in haste. I think this is going to take some more thought to come up with a final reallocation process. And so I think that'd be best if we just hold off on this and address some of these other issues as well before we move forward with this subsection 4 rule and this amendment. So I would ask that the board take a pause on this and step back and hold off on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I guess we have an opportunity here to vote up or down on this motion. If it's voted down, then it goes back to the Fish and Game with that part not being in there, and they will just operate under the language that they had before this document came out. Is that correct? Jeff or Deb? I didn't articulate that.
Yes.
Very well. I'm sorry.
No, Chair Kip. Yes, that'd be correct. I mean, if this isn't approved, as we indicated earlier, the balance of what's been approved in the adoption notice would be carried forward to the Secretary of State. The amendment would be made, and the new rules, one that were approved by the first motion, would be adopted into ARM.
Okay. So Jody, you're wanting to have some more involvement with these outfitters. If we don't do something here, it's going to revert back to the old method. And if we do, we can kind of direct, where we would like it to go. And I'm a little.
Yep. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think you said that my thoughts correctly, and one of the commenters, one of his comments is that there should be a working group together, that the folks should come together, and he mentioned the Board of Outfitters and the outfitting community coming together, and so I think there's a great opportunity to bring these folks together and discuss this. Like, Russ, there's just 7 outfitters on the Smith, and it sounds like they're eager to come to the table and discuss this with the department. So I would certainly encourage that.
Chair Kip.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, and that I don't know, the overall feeling I get is that they're concerned about a lack of coordination with Fish and Wildlife. So the coordination would be a key factor for them.
Okay.
And cooperation, I guess.
Kathy, have you got anything there?
Yeah, but if the language is amended to be more inclusive, that takes care of this situation and makes it like the others, and we could just move forward on it right now, couldn't we?
I think so. There's nothing on the table that would give the department direction to call, outfitters together to develop anything more. And this is just about the allocation of a permit should it become available. And seemed like all the comments they were in favor of that language being in there. And so the question we're having is, this in my mind is it going to be limited to just the outfitters that have permits, those 7, or is it going to be opened up to a more broad base, similar to the language on the Bitterroot River that Jeff mentioned? But there's nowhere in our motion that we're asking for more meetings with the 7 outfitters. So, and I don't believe we can do that. John, you had your hand up.
Chair Kip, Chief Legal Counsel, can you reread that rule that from the Bitterroot, was it?
Yeah, the language from that simply says that permits, in that case, it talks about revoked or abandoned, but you couldn't, it's a little bit different system over there. But permits will be made available to all commercial fishing and floating operators via a random lottery to be conducted by the department.
So that's the only verbiage in subsection 4. That would be the only verbiage.
Correct. We would just change that to just say that where it says may become available by no longer being allocated will be, and we just roll that language right into it that just say will be made available, instead of say to the remaining outfitters identified in Appendix A, which is what the proposed rule said, where it's constrained to just the current Smith permit holders. It would just use that same language from the Bitterroot ARM that's out there already.
So any commercial launches that may become available. That's how it would start,
Correct.
exactly like that.
And so by doing that, if we were to vote that yes, if say 2 launches became available, the department would make that available to all a broader base group of outfitters, and they would still maintain the same, whatever it is, 71 or 72 launches that exist right now. So these would never go away. They would always be in there. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair Kip.
Okay. Liz, do you have any more comment?
Sorry, Chair, I was muted. I do not.
Okay. Well, I think we've gone through this and we don't have anybody public to comment on this new motion. So let's vote by show of hands. All in favor, hand up.
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that's 3-2. So that motion is passed with the 3-2 vote. Okay, then the next thing on, does that take care of everything there adequately, Jeff, to move forward with it?
Yes, Chair Kip, I think so. I'll get that, the rule notice or the notice of adoption revised to reflect that change in subsection 4 and get it tracked out to get up to Secretary of State.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is public use rules, deviations, presenter Deb O'Neill, acting division administrator for the Parks and Outdoor Rec. Deb, would you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair Kip, board members. This one, as you know, we brought you back in December, I believe, the consolidated public use rules that the department has been working on for years and years and years for all of the lands that FWP manages. So this would include fishing access sites and WMAs, among other smaller types of land that the Fish and Wildlife Commission vote on, and then bringing you the public use rules that affect the parks in our state that you guys have authority to vote on. So those public use rules, we knew that there would be some deviations that had to be considered for parks. And I have to thank board member Loomis. Unbeknownst to him, he's the one that probably instigated me diving down this road and peeling back so many layers of an onion, and I kept going and going and going. And what we found was we really didn't have a one place where we housed all of these rule deviations. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were not only consistently applying deviations, but we also were tracking where they were on our lands. So because of my discussions with him, we had wildlife staff, Parks and Outdoor Rec staff, enforcement, regional staff look at all of our lands and look at all of the deviations that we had existing to see if they were still deviations to the the consolidated public use rules, if we needed to make additional deviations or if the deviations were obsolete. So what you have before you in that Excel spreadsheet, and I apologize, I don't think Eric was able to print it very well. It came out a little wonky. So I encourage you to look at it online if you can. But we identified all the deviations that the State Parks Board has approved for the past many years, and that we ask you to approve it annually. So those were existing deviations that maintained that we had to maintain as deviations with the new public use rules. And then in addition, we asked park employees, are there any other new deviations from the commercial consolidated public use rules that you see that we should include? And we asked staff to be consistent with this, as well as also looking toward, an eye toward public safety. And that first sheet, they developed 13 additional deviations for your consideration. The first line was statewide, and it's for all state parks. So if you remember, back in December, excuse me, the consolidated public use rules, excuse me, limited camping to 7 nights across all fishing access sites, WMAs, and state parks. And that was to increase opportunity in the summertime for more people to be able to use our state parks. But what we heard from the public and from our staff is outside of that peak season, and peak season is the third Thursday in May through the third Monday of September. So mostly that summertime, Memorial Day to Labor Day. Outside of that, they felt it was okay to increase camping to 14 nights in our state parks. And a lot of hunters use our state parks, a lot of anglers in the fall use our state parks. And so we were wanting to allow them more opportunity to stay longer. So you'll see that we are recommending a deviation from the 7-night rule for all state parks to be 14 nights. During the off season. The commission just approved this for all fishing access sites. WMAs are staying at 7 nights, but all fishing access sites went to 14 nights this past commission meeting. The rest of the rule deviations that you see here are really for public safety. There are food storage rules, there are discharge of weapons and weapons restrictions. And that was it, and all approved by our regions and our enforcement staff. If you have any specific questions on any of these specific new deviations, we do have staff in the regions to help answer any questions that I might not be able to. But with that, I would just ask for you to approve the new deviations and reapprove the existing deviations as we present here. Mr. Chair.
Hey, thank you, Deb. Discussion with our board members. Do we have any board member that wants to comment here?
Mr. Chair, this is Liz Whiting. I don't have any problems with it. I think it makes a lot of sense, and as the commission has already voted on part of it, makes sense to move forward.
Okay. So I'll need a motion from someone on the board.
Would you like me to again, Mr. Chair?
Why not? You're on a roll.
The motion queen today.
Yeah.
I move the Parks and Rec Board approve the existing rule deviations and approve the proposed rule deviations as presented.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, John, thank you. So Liz made the motion and John second. Do we have any commenters, public commenters?
We have no hands raised online.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So then we'll vote for this. We'll raise our hands again. All in favor, say or raise a hand with an aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
so we have 5 ayes. So we approve that with a vote of 5 to 0. So the next thing is the classification investment strategy policy. Deb O'Neill again will present this for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was at the request of Chair Kip to review. Coming into this in December, I was still learning on what and when needed to be reviewed by the commission, and this was one of the things that came up, or not the commission, the board, sorry. This was written in 2019 and initially approved by the board and readopted in 2021 with the intent to review it every 2 years. It was missed in 2023, and there had been no recommended changes since the 2019 initial writing of it. And what I asked POR staff to do was to just review this to make sure it was accurate, to make sure that we weren't missing anything. And we knew that we had to, for instance, remove Headwaters as a primitive park. We needed to add Summers, and we needed to remove Hell Creek since it's no longer under our jurisdiction. And we just really cleaned up the language. I believe Eric sent the board the track changes draft, which was really, really minimal. It was language cleanup, and then also including those other parks or removing those parks. And we're just bringing this to you as you may approve it, but also I was interested in hearing, and I didn't hear back from any board members on if there's anything here that was missing that you'd like to see. And I didn't hear anything, so I didn't, obviously include anything in there, but we think it's a clean document. I think it's going to help us moving forward, continue to help us moving forward in our priorities and how we allocate maybe House Bill 5 money. So it's just a cleaned up document, no real changes, and happy to take any comments or questions on that.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Board members, any comments? I've got one here. The dates on the review and adoption, I think that they need to reflect that in my booklet here, it says effective date from 6/20 of 19 and the review date of today. But we readopted it in 21. We're doing this again in 24. Are we going to go back to a 1 year, 2 year, get back to the odd years? Because in one place it talks about 1 year and then it talks about 2 years in here. What will be the next review date? It's talking about 25, but then 2 years. So Deb, can you help us out there?
Sure, thank you. Yes, Chief Counsel Hindoin told me he had a discussion with you about those dates, and I did find that it was readopted May 27th, 2001. So we're happy to include the date that it was readopted and the new date that it was readopted, which might be today. So we'll include those in there and that it was revised and adopted today. I'm sorry if I missed that I said it was 1 year or 2 years. That is, I recommend 2 years. The department recommends 2 years, but that's really at the pleasure of the board. You guys can decide how often you would like to review this. Things don't change that much. We had very little in the 3 years since the last review, so it's really up to the board.
Well, I didn't know if we needed to just do a 1 year to get back on that odd year cycle that it started out 21, 20, 19, 21, and then 23 that we missed. And if we're doing it now, do we do 1 year
I
to
don't,
get back on 205, or do we just do the 2 year cycle and just go from today? That would be my question.
thank you, Chair. I don't think we need to get on that cycle. I don't think there's any reason to do that.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions from board members?
So, Chairman Kip.
Jody, go ahead.
So what we do is we would just leave the language that says this would remain in effect till August 25th. So that is what it says, Russ. So this would be really just approving it for a year, but we're on the same calendar as we were before.
So
Sure,
that's
yeah, Board Member Loomis, I left it in for 1 year, but you guys, the board can change it to 2 years if you choose. I just left it in for that 1 year because I wasn't sure what the discussion would lead to.
That's fine with me. At least off the top of my head, I can't see a reason one way or another. So if we just want to leave that and as it is, we would just have to look at it again, and it'd have to be revisited in this time next year. But I'm fine either way.
So I was going to say, Chair Kip and Board Member Lewis, that the motion is for 2 years. I missed that August 2025. I apologize. So the cover sheet isn't what dictates when you have to review it. It's the motion. So you can do it for 2 years, or you could do it for 1.
okay. So the motion is for 2 years, so that would make it to 26, and I guess it's back on the 2 years. Any other discussion? Okay, I need a motion from the board. Someone? John?
Yes. Chair Kip, board members, I move the Parks and Recreation Board approve the changes to the classification and investment strategy policy for 2 years as presented by the department.
Okay, I need a second.
Once again, I second.
Okay, Kathy McLean seconds that. Do we have any public comments?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised at this time, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So those all in favor, raise your hand. And Liz, are you still there? I think we dropped off. I just got a message. I'll see if it's Liz. I lost my connection. So we'll pass this Forta and just note that Liz lost connection. So that's approved 4-0. So then the next thing, we have any public comments on items not on the agenda? Ryan, do we have anybody in the queue?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have any hands raised at this time.
Okay. So just a question from our board. I know we've been having these Zoom meetings, and we have a little bit of problem, just like Liz dropped connections, and there's some days we can't hear and that. is there a chance that we may go back to an in-person meeting? And I guess I need to talk to Kathy and John about this because you would have to travel the most distance, or we could have it in a different place. Deb, what are your thoughts from the department about going back to some in-person meetings?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Kip. I think that's a possibility. It really depends on, I think, the agenda load. I'm not sure that, like even with our commission, when we have a very short commission meeting, they've been meeting by Zoom. In fact, this last meeting was the first time in person, and I don't even remember how long. And they've had some long Zoom meetings, but they recognize that it does cost quite a bit to get together. So I think the agenda load, I don't know, like I said, a 2-hour meeting would be worth it for Board Member McLean or Morancek to drive way more hours for a 2-hour meeting, but that's not my call. But and I think the October meeting that we plan on having with you right now only has 2 agenda items on it, or will have 2 agenda items on it. So yeah, I think that's a board discussion more than with my input. I just, caution about the cost for a short meeting.
I have absolutely no problem with traveling, but you're right. If it's a short meeting, it'd be nice to be able to have the options, Zoom or in person, depending on the length of the agenda.
Chairman Kip, if I can, if it's helpful at all to the board, as a department, as Deb had mentioned, the commission met in person recently. They're just to ensure that they're available for the public for public comment as well, and for whatever value it is when you consider travel. As you guys can see on your screens, all of our regional offices do set up their conference rooms for these committees, and maybe that is a solution to some of the board members who may have to travel.
Okay. Well, I like the idea that if the workload is large, the meeting goes long. I like the idea of having an in-person meeting. I know there's a couple members on our board that haven't met each other, and so an in-person meeting now and then would be nice. If it's a shorter meeting, Zoom is good. I mean, we can work through the drop calls and the glitches that we have with somebody.
Certainly, Chair Kip, certainly, as our chief of staff was talking, somebody from our technology services division was texting me at the same time, the regional offices, as a workaround for the technology piece. Obviously, that doesn't get at, I think, what you're trying to talk about, Chair Kip, is the in-person piece, not necessarily the technology piece. But if you do choose to stay virtual, that is an option, especially for Board Member Whiting. If she has these technology issues, she could go to a regional office to solve that problem.
Okay, I appreciate it. And I can't remember who I was talking. It was either Kathy or it was Liz about that when we visited yesterday or the day before, about maybe going back to an in-person meeting. So yeah. I think it was Liz, and I think she would have had some comments, but she's not on anymore. So,
yeah. Chairman,
any other discussion, Jody?
Yeah, and I would agree with you. There's definitely some value in the members getting together once in a while and actually seeing each other in person. I think that's important to do occasionally. And also, I know that a lot of times in the past, the department had would have presentations, informational items, maybe updates on visitation numbers or these kind of things that the Parks Board finds interesting. So it would be pretty easy if the department had the time, of course, to just provide updates to us and maybe depending on where we are, there's also an opportunity for us to possibly visit a site or something like that as well. So there's other informational type things that the Parks Board is interested in other than just our action items that make the agenda.
Sounds good. So I don't think we need to do much more on this. If that's everything, we'll get ready to adjourn the meeting. Would someone like to make that motion?
Chair Kip, I'm sorry, I might have missed. Did you ask for any public comment not on the agenda?
I did. That was the
Okay,
first
I missed
thing.
that. Sorry.
Yeah, and
It's been
Ryan
technical.
said we did not have anybody in the
My
queue.
apologies. My apologies.
Is that correct, Ryan? Are you still there?
Mr. Chairman, yes, there are still no hands raised at this time.
Okay. Yeah, we're good. So then I kind of took myself as I'm public. And I jumped in there with the discussion. So I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Jody, are you
Mr.
there?
Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Okay, and the second.
Mr. Chairman, I make a second to that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks.